I yield back.
Gentleman from Arizona is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ambassador Tai, the long-running conversation you and I have had, because you know my intense concern that as the economy becomes much more technical, whether it be biologics, whether it be, data management, those things, the speeds up. The value of that copyright, that patent, that it becomes shorter and shorter because the disruptions are coming faster. And therefore, the constant conversation you and I have had is the speed, the efficiency, the fairness of the adjudication process, WTO ability, dispute resolution. Tell me where we're at.
Great. Well, I'm delighted, Mr. Schweikert, and I know that you do like the technical aspects of all that we do, and it's demonstrated by your question about the WTO. Let me talk about the dispute settlement system at the WTO. First, put it in the context that the dispute settlement system doesn't exist in a vacuum, that it is part of the larger WTO institution that we value very, very much for what it stands for how it brings together 164 economies in the world and provides us with a forum for dealing with each other and being able to communicate with each other and to resolve the disputes that we have when they come up. So the reform of the WTO dispute settlement system is tied to the consensus at the WTO that the entire WTO ought to be reformed to reflect the economy that we're living in today, and also to be able to keep up with the changes in our economy since the WTO was established almost 30 years ago. So on WTO reform broadly, because I also want to make very clear, the United States and our team at the mission to the WTO in Geneva is engaging across the board. We have a special responsibility on dispute settlement, but we are engaging at the committee level. We are bringing written proposals every meeting, and we are also leaning in on how to make this a more functional negotiating forum.
And Ambassador, you know my fixation also on the clock.
On the clock, here we go. On dispute settlement, what we are doing is we are seeking a system that is singularly focused on helping two parties resolve a trade dispute, to be a dispute settlement system. As the system was intended, dispute settlement has evolved into an avenue for judicial rulemaking. It has become synonymous with litigation, very expensive and time-consuming litigation, to your point about the clock. It allows countries to seek through litigation what they could not accomplish by negotiation. So the results have significantly damaged U.S. interests through an interpretation that, for example, shields China's non-market practices and undermines our ability to defend U.S. workers and businesses. You may also be aware of the recent national security decisions that have come out of the WTO system that are deeply concerning to us and to our national security sovereignty. So we are engaging. We are engaging on a reform process that requires 164 economies and members of the WTO to agree. And this is not about us dictating the terms. It is about us being very honest about what our interests are, what we need the dispute settlement system to do for us, but also to craft a renewed and better dispute settlement system with our partners at the WTO.
Ambassador Tai, as the conversations continued for the last few years, I know a number of our EU trading partners, even some of our free market economies in Asia, have the same concerns as you've articulated, we've articulated. I understand this is supposed to be a consensus operation. But at some point we have some bad actors who may not join that consensus. How do we use our ultimate leverage that the vast majority of the world's trading partners believe that the reforms are necessary?
Yes, we have consensus around the fact that reforms are necessary. It's reflected in the MC12 joint statement that came out. The hard work comes now in terms of actually doing the reform. And I want to assure you that our very dedicated team, led by our ambassador to the WTO, Ambassador Maria Pagan, is doing that every single day in Geneva.
Please let us know what we can do to be help but to move it along. At some point, the calcification of this discussion is getting tiresome.
We would be happy to update
Thank you, Ambassador.
Gentleman from New Jersey is recognized.
Good morning, Ambassador. It's always a pleasure, and we have a lot of faith in you. And thank you for your service.